Greetings, fellow detectives. Wizard Kitten here, bringing you a new build in my series, Building Nancy Drew in The Sims 4. Today's build is a little bit different than some of the builds we've done in the past because it is not a recreation from one of the games. In my recent video where I built Yumi's apartment in The Sims 4, I talked about how I was kind of exploring the idea of building apartments or houses for characters whose homes we do not get to see in the games just based on their character and their style, and so I definitely wanted to try that out. I do think I'll end up doing some more apartments as well, but to give this a go for the first time, I wanted to explore a cottage build for the one and only Professor Hotchkiss. I think she's a fan favorite character. I think she's a wonderful character, and she just has so much personality that I figured it would be a good one to start with in an attempt to convey what that character's home might look like simply based on their personality, because she has such a big and a clear personality, which I love. We love Professor Hotchkiss. So when I was looking at Professor Hotchkiss's home, I was trying to keep a few things in mind. I was trying to keep in mind the fact that she is a very interesting woman and that she seems to have kind of these double sides to her personality. You know, it's like sometimes she's super scattered and other times she's super coherent, and sometimes she's very organized and sometimes she's very messy. I mean, we can see this in her room. She also seems simultaneously old-fashioned and very connected to the past while also still having a zest for modern ideas and thoughts and stuff like that. I figured a cottage would be a really nice place for Professor Hotchkiss to live because it would kind of combine those ideas really nicely. It's an old place, it's very cozy. I believe that she lives on her own. She just kind of seems that is her life. So I figured a nice, small, cozy place, especially since she might not be home a lot. I feel like Professor Hotchkiss does a lot of traveling, so a smaller space is also easier to maintain. But it has a lot of old world charm, especially here in the world of Windenburg, which is kind of the very old world European inspired world. I figured Professor Hotchkiss could be very happy in Windenburg and very happy in a little cottage that she would maintain very pristinely. Is that a word? Pristinely? She would try to make sure that her cottage is very pristine and that she would not let it crumble. She would definitely keep it highly maintained. She would do whatever she could to restore and keep the cottage looking as good as it might have when it was originally built, who knows when, a long time ago. But I figured that's something that Hotchkiss would find very important, so that's what I tried to convey with the exterior and with the decoration inside as well. Again, I really tried to consider her personality and tried to consider that she is kind of a scattered person, but she's also somebody who has, I think, a great deal of principles. So when she's decorating this place, she's going to find things from places that she's been to. She's going to find things that bring her joy. She's going to find things that have a lot of meaning and a lot of character. So that's really what I tried to get across when I was doing this build. And hopefully you guys think that I was successful with that. You'll have to let me know at the end what you think and if you could see Professor Hotchkiss actually living here. I know this is the third build, I believe, that we've done, so quite a few weeks with a build rather than a Let's Play episode. I just wanted to let you guys know that the And Then There Were None series is definitely still going on. I am still working on that. There will continue to be episodes of And Then There Were None 2, Love to Hate, our Season 2 for that Let's Play. I've been going through kind of a hard time with my mental health lately. It's just been kind of tough. And there are certain videos that are easier to execute and put together when I am in that headspace, and builds are one of those. I think it's definitely easier for me to kind of disconnect a little bit and put on some music, let my creativity run, and not necessarily have to think about all the thoughts going through my head, but rather just kind of give my brain a rest for a little while and hone it into something that I can create something really cool and unique. So that's why builds end up being a little bit easier during this time. I do apologize for the delay in And Then There Were None episodes, but they will continue to come out. But just know that sometimes I might be putting some builds out instead, just because they're good for my mental health, you know? I think working on Let's Play episodes takes a little bit more motivation and effort and creativity in terms of putting things together and putting ideas together and trying to get everything to work out just perfectly, and then the editing process as well. So they will be there, they will continue to come along, but I'm also going to probably be giving you guys some builds. So I hope you are okay with that. You guys are usually very wonderful and supportive, so I hope that you enjoy this build, is my long-winded explanation for that. I decided to do a couple of the more generic interior spaces first before I moved on to the areas that might have a little bit more character. So the bathrooms, for example, are a little bit more generic. In terms of the colors in the cottage, I did toy around with the idea of having really vibrant walls, because I think that Professor Hotchkiss is somebody who really loves color. I think she's someone who would try to integrate color into her decoration as often as possible. But at the same time, it didn't feel right with the style of a cottage to have like purple walls somewhere or yellow walls or something like that. And I think, again, Professor Hotchkiss is always trying to do this balancing act. So she wants the cottage to feel authentic, but she also wants to put her own spin on it. So I left a lot of the walls and a lot of the flooring and tile pretty neutral. And I think that's because that's how the cottage would have come. And I think that Professor Hotchkiss would consider it like desecrating the history of the cottage if she were to add too much color. So that was kind of my reasoning behind that. I enjoyed making this little laundry room space and really cluttering it up quite a bit and putting a bunch of things in here. I also kind of enjoy that it's separate from the rest of the house. It's almost like a little mudroom space, so you would have to go outside to get to the laundry room. So I think this is maybe an add-on space that wasn't necessarily in the cottage before, but perhaps was added as a convenience because it is super convenient to have in-unit, in-home laundry. For any of you who have ever lived in apartments or houses without laundry in it, it's super frustrating and makes things really difficult. So I feel like that would be a modern convenience that might have been added by Professor Hotchkiss or by a previous resident, who knows. So then when we were moving on to her bedroom, I wanted it to get a lot of like antique looking furniture that was still very colorful. And in terms of her bedside table, I wanted to make sure that there was a book or a journal. And I love this one because it has stains all over it. So, I mean, just picture Professor Hotchkiss sitting on the edge of this bed, having her bowl of couscous or her, platter of chicken wings and scrawling madly in this journal in the middle of the night. I could totally see Professor Hotchkiss waking up at midnight and having like a dream that just flooded her with inspiration. And she has a dream journal where she jots down all of the thoughts that have come into her head while she's having her midnight snack. And it happens to get all over the pages. And there's big ink splats too, and it's like crossed out. That journal just screamed Hotchkiss to me. I loved it. I also wanted to put this cork board up by her bed because I figured every time she traveled to a really unique place in the world, she would always get a postcard, and I think she would like to have those close to her when she sleeps so that when she looks at the postcards before she goes to bed, she's like trying to have dreams of all of the cool locations that she's been to. Could totally see her doing something like that. I, of course, gave her a teddy bear because, come on, Professor Hotchkiss absolutely has a teddy bear, right? I still have my childhood teddy bear, and I have a pillow pet. It is a purple hippo named Lavender, and I have a squishmallow. For any of you that have anxiety or just enjoy adorable stuffed animals, highly recommend squishmallows. I have a penguin named Puff, and they are big, round, squishable, huggable creatures that are just perfect for hugging, perfect for relaxing. Highly recommend a Squishmallow. Put it on your Christmas list. Get yourself a Squishmallow. They're worth it. But anyway, I figured Professor Hotchkiss would definitely have a stuffed animal. So then this would normally be a second bedroom, but because Professor Hotchkiss lives alone, I decided it would be a study space. I do also like how cramped this cottage ended up being. I mean, the rooms are super duper teeny, but I kind of like that. I always feel more comfortable in tiny spaces too. There's something more cozy and kind of confining about them, where it's like you can see everything around you and feel everything around you. Just something about this space, but I figured that she would have this big wall of books, so all of her most treasured tomes are in these bookshelves, and then she would have her desk pushed up right against it. We have, I think this My Sim statue is Elmira, I think is her name, but she's the librarian My Sim, and I think she and Professor Hotchkiss have a lot in common. So I just tried to put a lot of decorations in this teeny space. I imagined that she got that tapestry, and that is a hand-woven tapestry that she got from one of her travels. Because her bedroom is so small, I had to put the dresser outside. So this is actually her dresser where she would keep her clothes. I don't imagine that Professor Hotchkiss has a ton of clothes, and I feel like a lot of the clothes that she probably does have are clothes that she has acquired through her travels. So just kind of regular everyday type clothes. I don't think she has a ton of those. So I figured she would be able to make one dresser work just fine. And then she would do a lot more acquiring on her vacations and such. This gorgeous pot was added recently in The Sims in the Hispanic Heritage Month update. They added a bunch of really beautiful items, and I think I'm going to be using this pot all the time. I absolutely love it. I used this vase and the little sculpture from the Island Living Pack as well, because I think Professor Hotchkiss frequently goes to the island of Sulani and does some archaeology work there. I made sure to give her maps and diplomas, anything that felt kind of like educational, institutional, as in like colleges and universities and stuff. I tried to give her those kinds of items to really get across the idea that this is the professor. She is a smart, wacky lady, and she has a lot of stuff in this house. That was the goal. One area that I did keep a little bit more muted was the kitchen and the dining room. My reasoning for that is that Professor Hotchkiss loves her food. We know this. She's a big old foodie. She loves to eat a variety of foods. I feel like most of the time, Professor Hotchkiss probably eats out. Like, I think it's pretty frequent that she is going to hole-in-the-wall restaurants for dinner, and she's getting herself, like, as many varieties of food that she can possibly find. I just feel like that's something that she would do. And when she does cook at home, I feel like cooking and baking is like a sacred task for Professor Hotchkiss, because food is life. Food is very important. So I think she would keep the kitchen really tidy. It would be the one area in the house that she would always make sure was organized and clean, so that she could always find the exact spices that she need, always find the exact fresh produce. I definitely made sure to give her tea. I almost gave her a coffee pot, and then I was like, what am I thinking? Professor Hotchkiss definitely drinks tea. She's not a coffee drinker. She's absolutely a tea drinker. Maybe she drinks coffee too, but tea definitely seemed to suit her a lot more. I still wanted to keep the counters relatively cluttered, so she still has a lot of stuff, but it doesn't feel, I tried not to make it feel messy, at least. It's an organized clutter. And a couple of the countertops are relatively empty, so that she at least has one very clear workspace for when she is cooking at home. The kitchen too is pretty updated, like she has stainless steel appliances, the countertops are brand new. I feel like the cupboards themselves could be original to the house, but she probably had them refinished and repainted. Again, it's an old cottage, but she's trying to keep it in as pristine of condition as she can. It's like when you excavate a vase and you polish it off, repaint it, bring it back to its former glory. I feel like that's definitely what she's trying to do with her home, with her cottage here. We are finishing up with the kitchen now and moving on to the dining room. Just a simple little dining room here, small little table. I put some curtains on the windows. I give her some kind of like comfy chairs. I feel like this is where she sits and she has her morning tea. And she looks out this big, beautiful window here and kind of contemplates what her day is going to be. I don't think that Professor Hotchkiss keeps very regular hours. And we know this from Treasure in the Royal Tower. She is sometimes up in the middle of the night. She thinks that she does her best thinking in the night. So I don't think that she sits down to have regular meals at the dining table at the normal times that most people would have them. So when she is sitting at this table, I'm imagining that she's having a cup of tea, or it's like 3 a.m. and she makes herself an omelet. You know, it's like completely random times that you wouldn't necessarily eat certain foods, but Professor Hotchkiss keeps her own hours. She doesn't run on regular times. She runs on Hotchkiss time, and she does whatever she wants. And I respect that about Professor Hotchkiss a lot. I made sure to try and fill in essentially every space in this house that I possibly could because, again, Professor Hotchkiss is a collector. I feel like she definitely got that pot from one of her travels, that vase there, the brown one. This little clay teapot I definitely feel like is authentic. She probably usually has a stack of letters that she puts on that table there or on the dining room table that she just doesn't answer, you know? Like she lets her mail pile up all the time. I feel like when she would get ready to go on a trip somewhere, she would very frequently forget to tell the post office, hey, I'm going to be away for 2 weeks, hold my mail. I feel like she would very frequently forget to do that, and her mailbox would just be overflowing. Again, scattered, but when she'd notice it, she would just plow through those mails and figure it out. I love that about her. We love that. Same with the living room. I wanted it to feel very cluttered. I used some furniture that felt kind of refurbished, so like this big comfy chair from Eco Lifestyle. I don't think that Professor Hotchkiss would have any problem with upcycling whatsoever. I think she would definitely be okay doing that. And in the living room is really where I tried to showcase a lot of travel items. So a lot of, I hesitate to say souvenirs because that makes it sound like she, bought it in a shop. I don't think she's buying souvenirs in a shop like a typical tourist, I think the professor is either finding these things on her trip or she is like having them commissioned on her trip. Like this bird statue, this carving, I feel like she got on one of her trips, and then I add a couple more decorations as well. But again, they're not your typical souvenirs. The professor only wants the best in terms of things that she can show off in her living room. And the mantle of a fireplace is honestly a great place to do this. I'm so happy that we got rocking chairs too, because a rocking chair just suits the professor so perfectly, does it not? She needs a good rocking chair. And then I'm adding in a couple of these decorations. I do give her a skull here, which of course we know she needed because of Legend of the Crystal Skull. She hands down needed a skull. It's obviously not the crystal skull, but you know that she would absolutely have those. And I believe those are from the Dia de los Muertos update or event. The Sims used to do these events where they would celebrate a certain holiday and then you'd be able to find things periodically. And I think there was a Dia de los Muertos event where you could find those skulls around. And now they've just been added into the game and you can just kind of do that with around the same time that Seasons came out. I could be remembering that incorrectly, but The Sims has been around for a while now, so it's kind of easy to get things mixed up a little bit. Of course, the more bookcases, the better. I made sure to put maps on the walls as well. Lots of candles to really get the ambiance going. I think the professor loves a good candle. Honestly, who doesn't? Candles are fantastic. I thought the llama cactus was also perfect. It's just the perfect amount of wacky and silly that I think Professor Hotchkiss would love. That horse statue reminded me a lot of Secret of Shadow Ranch, and I think at some point the professor has been to Shadow Ranch, right? Like, she's probably found her way there. This is where I was playing around with trying out some colored walls. Like I mentioned before, I feel like the professor really likes color and would try to incorporate it around, but it just was not working. And I wanted to maintain the floorboards too. Not the floorboards, the baseboard. So that brown baseboard that has been around the whole house, I wanted to try and maintain that. And it just didn't feel right using a lot of the wallpapers. I did change the laundry room to yellow because, again, that was an add-on. So I don't think she would care about painting that room at all. She would do whatever she wants in there. And it looks like I did go with a blue wall in the living room. So that would be the one place where she was just like, okay, just a pop of color. This room is just too neutral. I need something. So that's where she kind of let herself loose a little bit, which I think kind of a fun idea. I enjoy that idea. Working on the entryway here as well, I really wish we had shoes as a separate object. We only have them in these shoe racks, but I think it would be really fun to kind of sprawl her shoes out all over this entryway, because I get the idea that the professor would kind of come in and kick off her shoes, and she would come into her house in a flurry. Like, I feel like we all know these kinds of people, and sometimes I feel this way, where you walk into your house, you just throw your coat wherever you walk, you're kind of rushing through the house, you drop your keys somewhere, you kick off your shoes, if you're wearing a scarf, you unravel that and throw it around. I just get the idea of the professor busting through this door because she's in an inspiration moment and she needs to write down her thoughts immediately, and if she doesn't do it now, she's gonna forget it. So I feel like that happens to her periodically, and then when she comes out of those moments, she realizes, oh my gosh, my house is a mess. I need to clean immediately. And then she'll do that in a flurry. I think she's somebody that lives very much off of her whims and off of her impulses, not in a bad way necessarily. It's more just like she's spontaneous. There you go. That's the word. She's spontaneous. So tried to get that across as much as I could. I realized that we needed a good coffee table here. Again, I've used that knitted octopus so much, but how can we not? It's so cute. I just love it. I don't think the professor necessarily knits. I feel like she would be one of those people that would like enjoy the idea of knitting and try to take it up as a hobby, and then she would forget about it and not do it. Like, she would pick up a different hobby along the way. And this is kind of the point where I started to add in a little bit more character to the inside of the house, and then I move on to doing the landscaping and the outside to kind of finish it up. I was feeling that the house was a little bit too clean, and it needed more books scattered all over the place. So you just saw me in the office put a couple of books on the floor, candles and boxes. I feel like she sometimes leaves her clothes laying on the ground and she doesn't always pick them up. Again, she's leaving books all over the place. Like, she started reading that book on that chair and then she forgot about it. And then there's a couple more laying around in her bedroom. This one she picked up from the shelf and then she left it on the table out in the hallway. She just picks things up and then she leaves them and then she forgets about them, is kind of the idea I was going for with that. So this house does have a bunch of random clutter all over the floors because I feel like Professor Hotchkiss would have a bunch of clutter all over the floors. What is your guys' style when it comes to like cleaning and clutter and stuff like that? I've always wanted to be very clean and organized because I know that a clean space helps to have a clean mind, and I think I do a pretty good job of that. Like, I'm pretty decent about keeping things organized, keeping things clear. I love design, so I try to make sure that my house and my spaces all like look nice and have cute things on them. But like the actual act of cleaning, like cleaning the stove or cleaning the sink and the tub and the toilets, those acts of cleaning are just like annoying, right? Some people love it. Some people enjoy cleaning. And I wish I was one of those people. I wish it came super easily. It's one of those things that I force myself to do because I know that it's important. But I definitely don't enjoy it. Wish I did, but I don't. Here I was going through the organized debug. I was trying out a mod by, I believe it's Twisted Mexi. They completely reorganized the debug menu. They created a mod that did that so that you could search for debug items. They were more organized. And I downloaded it and it just wasn't quite working. And it might just be that I couldn't figure out how you were actually supposed to work it. So I think it probably was more my fault than the mod creator's fault. But I could not find the University Ivy that we got from The Sims 4 Discover University. So when I upload this build, it will absolutely have the Discover University ivy on it. And I think in the screenshots, it should have the ivy on it as well, because this cottage needs ivy. It has to have it. I could not do it without the ivy. So I don't think I find it in this sped up footage, but I do eventually find the ivy to put on there, just so that you're aware. Doing a ton of terrain painting and then adding in flowers everywhere. I think I was striving for the perfect amount of like just a little bit too much flora around the professor's house, you know? Like there's just a little bit too much flowers, too many flowers, to make it look super manicured. That's kind of the look I was going for. It still looks clean and put together, but I think the professor would have a really hard time limiting herself with flowers, so I think she would go all the way out with them, is kind of the idea I was going for. A couple little trees, and then we end up doing a nice little back patio as well. I give her a couple of nice things out in the front yard. I give her some planting pots. I definitely gave her a bike because the professor absolutely rides her bike around Windenburg as frequently as she can. Like if she needs a burst of inspiration, I think what she does is she hops on her bike, which totally has a basket and a bell, by the way. It absolutely does. And she goes up to one of the cafes in Windenburg, or one of the hole-in-the-wall restaurants that I was talking about, and she goes and gets a cup of tea, coffee, if she drinks it. Still on the fence about that. I still think she drinks mostly tea. And then, or gets a snack, and just bikes her little heart out all over Windenburg. I can just totally see her doing that. Almost a la the mean lady in Wizard of Oz, but she's not mean. It's just like a frantic bike ride. It just has to be. So now working on the back patio here, again, I'm going to use some items from the Hispanic Heritage Month update. I thought the tables suited the professor perfectly. I gave her these beautiful purple ones because purple is her favorite color. We know this. So I gave her a really nice purple patio set to kind of complement her tastes. Yes, here is where we're putting in the pots and the bike. I was trying to find in the debug menu too some plants to put in there so that there would be things just ready to go. Couldn't really find any. And I don't know if those exist in the debug menu or if I am just imagining things, but I decided to fill the pots instead with these purple bushes and just kind of pretend like she had planted those in the pots themselves. If you want them to be functional, you can just remove the flowers and then they will be functional plants. I think I give her a pink bike too, and this is one of the bikes from Eco Lifestyle, so it's one of the ones that you typically would find in a dumpster, like you would find it and then upcycle the bike. That's absolutely how the professor gets her bike, right? That's totally how she does it. So for her back patio, we have these beautiful tiles from The Sims 4 Jungle Adventure. I love how they look, and I actually really like how the patio turned out as well. Her backyard is relatively simple, but then we have this beautiful purple set of table and chairs, again from the Hispanic Heritage update, a nice umbrella, and then a grill that we got from the update as well. And that's pretty much the professor's cottage. So we will be coming up on the screenshots here very shortly. I hope that you guys enjoyed this build. If you did, please feel free to give it a little bit of a thumbs up. That kind of engagement really helps us find new fellow detectives. Please let me know what you thought about this build, and if there's any other characters that you would like to see apartments or homes for, please let me know in the comments down below. That would help me out a lot, and I would love to create some more homes and apartments for characters if that's something that you guys are interested in seeing. So definitely let me know in the comments down below. And if you aren't subscribed yet, I would love it if you would consider doing so that we can continue to build our family of fellow detectives. Coming up on the screenshots just now, so thank you so much for watching, fellow detectives. I will see you soon.